Thanks for talking to
So,
me, Dawn.
well, I'm really excited to hear you talk about these pictures. Can you explain the process again, George?
Yes, I can. So this essentially, I've been doing this for 7 years now, taking the pictures. Um, when my brother Ben, you've met, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, he got the part playing Thomas Cromwell in the Royal Shakespeare Company things of Bring Up the Bodies in Wolf Hall. He said to me, no, I said to him, hey, why don't we go and do a walk as a bit of research? Because he likes taking pictures, and I'd done some like rubbish historical research into Thomas Cromwell and saw lots of parallels between Ben, like where Ben was born and where Cromwell was born. You know, that's like Ben and the person he was going to play. So I said, why don't we do a
Hmm.
walk from uh, where our Nana used to live, my mum's mum, in Surbiton in London, over to Putney, where Cromwell was born, through Wimbledon, where I think Ben was born, and then get a barge or get a boat up the river to the city of London, and then walk through the city to the tower where he was executed, and just take some pictures, because he loves taking pictures and he's really good at taking pictures. So we were going to do that in a day, and then it took us all morning to get, no, it took us all day to get to the start, to get to like the river. And he said, I've got 32 pictures of car parks, and I think I now know all I need to know about the park. Thank you. And then after that, I took some photos up in the north, and he took some photos because he was on research trips with the RSC. And then on, I think, the first night he was about to play, we put all the pictures on a floor and edited like the first version of this book together, which was, I don't think you ever saw that version. And then I made him a copy and myself a copy, and we made one for Hilary. I said, do you think Hilary would want it? Hilary Mantel, the writer, and because he'd been working closely with her. And he said, yeah. So he gave her one, and then she wrote all this amazing stuff back about about what she'd seen in the work. She was kind of in writing saying what I was intuiting through making the pictures and through some of the pictures that Ben had made as well. And it was amazing. It was like, you know, like as an artist, you were really bad with words, right? So to have someone who's a really good writer, and she wasn't saying, I see this, she was just responding with writing. And I was thinking, holy shit, that's exactly what I was thinking, or sometimes that isn't what I was thinking, but now I can see that in that way. So that was astonishing. And then she said, would you like to come? She was writing the third book in the trilogy, and she said, would you like to come on some research trips with me? So Ben and I would go along with her to these insane places like Hampton Court and all kinds of other strange venues around the country, mainly London, that were to do with Cromwell, that to do with her research, and for the third book. And there was always a historian trying to tell like a mediated version of what that place was about, which was, and I think all three of us were more interested in the bits in between the sort of the story that was like trotted out by historians. They were great. They were always lovely people and very excited to see Hilary there. But it was like one of us would distract the gatekeeper, as it were, the historian, while the other two would be taking pictures of the toilets or the fire escapes to sort of get to the interesting parts. Because the way she works with writing and researching text, she's more interested in documents, say, to do with where who was eating what what the kitchen's ordered in for a certain meal, rather than some sort of like propaganda or some sort of thing issued by the court saying this did this and that did that, because that's always skewed. So she's sort of really interested in the idea of a plain, straight sort of document, and then elaborating upon that, I think, in a nutshell. That's one of her methods anyway. And that seemed to correlate with the way that we make pictures, that I make pictures. So we made all these pictures, and it came to the end of the project because she'd finished researching for the third book, and the third book's out now. And at some point during these adventures, because they were like adventures, we were saying, oh, we should do a book. And I think it was a bit of a joke at first. And then it became more and more like, yeah, this is a good idea. So during lockdown, this was my thing to do. Correlate all these pictures that Ben had taken and I had taken over 7 years, over different visits, different trips, different formats, which we might talk about in a minute, and gather them all up and start this ridiculous editing sequence, bringing them together. And that's what's behind me there, and that's what I sent you that dummy of. So that's how it came about.
So the 7 years, when you say that it took 7 years, were those 7 years along with Hilary?
That first bit was just Ben and I. That was just, say, for a few months. I think we did that first walk on there was the summer solstice, I think. It was or just before. And then there was a few months while Ben was rehearsing, and then we gave her the first draft, the first dummy that I made. And then after that, she was involved. So she would write stuff, and that would inspire me to go and make certain pictures, or I'd find stuff in the existing 2 books, so I think I'd have to go there and make pictures and then send them to her. And then she would sometimes, there'd be certain pictures that might unlock something for her and allow her to write something or revisit something from the first book. Sometimes there were pictures from me, sometimes from Ben. And also she was writing the script for the plays with Ben as they evolved and went to different venues. So there was a 3-way sort of thing. There was my pictures, her writing, and those 2 writing the scripts. And it was like a collaboration, but without saying, hey, let's collaborate. It just spiraled around. So about 6 years of it was trips, 6.5 years with trips out with Hilary.
Wow, that's incredible. And so when you were in the same location, was it like you and Ben would go out? Like, did you ever have, when you looked at the pictures again, were there moments where like you both had taken a picture of the same thing, or were your interests completely aligned?
Yeah, there were. There was one, there's one in here of like a cutout. It's like, it's like a cutout Tudor woman holding a baby with her face cut out. So insert your face here, which is just, every now and again you go, oh my God, this is a gimme. If anything kind of sums up Henry VIII trying to get a baby, trying to get an heir out of any wife he could, that was it. So I took a picture of that in square format, and then Ben had one almost identical, but like as a rectangle landscape. And it's funny, I was showing him this finished version, the big version, the 130-page monster, and he was going, oh, isn't there a rectangular version of that? And I was going, yeah, I think that's yours. He's going, I think that might be better, a bit more context. And I was going, oh, I don't know. But sometimes his pictures are much better than mine of the same thing. There's also one of a of like where somebody's left an iron. I don't know what you guys call them in the States, and it's scorched the wood. And I took that one the first time we went to Wolf Hall, which is this, you know, what the first book's named after. And then we revisited it. It must be about 4 or 5 years later, and Ben took almost the same picture of the same thing. And he didn't know I'd taken that one. So another thing that happened was Ben and I started out taking the pictures on like medium format cameras. So it'd be on film. And the pictures, I don't take a lot of exposures, as you know. And so the different places would end up on the same film. So there wasn't always something to send to Hilary and Ben straight away. I'd wait until the film got developed. Mm-hmm. But I was taking pictures on my phone as well, just sort of documenting what we were doing. And I'd send those pictures straight away, like the day after our visit. I'd send them off to Hilary and Ben. And then I realised, I mean, we had this conversation a few years ago, this sort of like crisis, like my phone pictures are so much better than my proper pictures, you know?
Right.
They're so much, you know, they're sort of, you know, more lively and then also Ben started buying different cameras. And so different formats would come in. There'd be like 35mm and then square phone camera shots and then 6:7 and all sorts. And I was sticking rigidly like to proper camera pictures for this book, the first incarnation. And then I just thought, why are we doing this? Like, there's so much more variation and so much more different flavors. And again, that sort of, I was thinking that sort of correlates to the way that, you know, different writing styles. And Hilary's writing can sometimes be very descriptive, like conversation piece and what the contents of a table are. And then it can suddenly slip into something else before you know it, something far more sort of metaphorical or mysterious. And like the different formats kind of echoed that. Also, like over 6-7 years, the way you make pictures changes, right? So I can track in myself like a much more a much more sort of, I don't know, like less descriptive and letting it be a little bit more I don't know what the word might be, sort of symbolic or metaphorical, less kind of objective, which is a problematic word, and a little bit more subjective, if that makes sense.
And so did that kind of go into your editing?
Yeah.
When you're sequencing the pictures?
Yeah. Yeah, like the because there's so many, I thought, well, I can do this like chronologically. And then if you're talking chronologically, are we talking like chronologically in the time zone that we made them, or chronologically for the books? You know, because it tracks Cromwell's life from, you know, or I can do it by place, which I think I eventually did. Like each row is kind of a chunk or a chapter, and each row is a kind of an area that's important. And that was probably just to keep myself sane, because I was like bringing together the pictures that Ben took, pictures that I took, and like thinking, oh God, where are those ones from Westminster, and where are those ones from the Tower of London? And then there were like 2 visits to the Tower. So I did it by place, and then that allowed me to mix up like the earlier pictures that are sort of straight, if you like a lot straighter, a lot more descriptive, and the ones that come later that are a bit looser. And you know, like the ones you might shoot on your phone are more notational and more off the cuff, and yet also full of life. And then the ones that you're shooting on a bigger camera on a tripod are a little bit more serious and somber and sober. And so that kind of hopefully comes across as different kind of tones to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and George, knowing your work, when I first looked at these set of pictures, I was so surprised by some of the pictures which have light leaks.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
some of the physical things that happen to the film. Like I'm looking at the spread with like a fireplace and like a polka dotted statue of a jaguar.
Yeah.
And that statue with, I don't know what that is, maybe like 3 scratches. It looks like some notch when it was the film was developing.
It's right at the end of the roll of film. So yeah, it's just me. This one, and the scratch. That's where they hung the roll of film up, because I like
that's incredible.
Right at the end, and I thought, oh no, and like, I'd have never put that in, but that it's that, without trying to be too clever or too meta or too postmodern about it, I wanted to sort of acknowledge a bit about the process. And so to include those marks where the film was hung up, I was like less bothered for this project. I would never normally put that in. And also there's something about the claws on that's a leopard. That's what Tudor people thought leopards looked like, because all you ever got then were descriptions of, there's this big cat and it's got spots on. So someone at Hampton Court says, all right, make me a leopard. So they get the sort of lion thing out and then paint spots on it. They don't know what colour it is. So that's a leopard. That's so. And there's something about its claws and the claw marks in the film. So that kind of made sense. And then the fogged ones, like that one, that was the first roll of film I took on that walk with Ben, and we went down to the edge of the Thames to a place called Brewhouse Lane, which is where Cromwell was born, or at least he grew up. And I was on like the shore of the Thames because the tide's out on the mud, and I'd actually taken 15 pictures, which was amazing, on that Fuji thing, medium format. So I was winding it on to put another roll of film in, because I thought, there's a couple more I want up there. And I opened the back, and for some reason, it's never happened before, medium format film, it just went and kind of unwound as the back was open, and I was like, shit. So I kind of screwed it up carefully, but I was thinking, that's ruined. That's like the whole day gone.
Yeah.
And then processed it, and you can see like the first 5 are fogged, more and more fogged, and then it gets less and less. And then you can also see like because the backing paper says Kodak, that's kind of exposed through it. So some of them say Kodak through them very gently. And again, I just thought it's a way of referencing the process in the way that a lot of writers talk about writing when they're writing, and also there was a picture of a dog. There's a picture of a dog that was fogged, and it's a huge hound that Ben and I encountered crossing Wimbledon Common, and that was really important to Hilary. She really seized on that, and it helped her to write something about an important scene in the book that was in the first book. And weirdly enough, that scene, years before I knew, I picked the book up in a bookshop and opened it up at random and read this scene, which is about the burning of a martyr, and then there's a bit with dogs after it. So it's really odd when those sort of things happen. I just think, we're onto something.
Wow. You know, this is going to be edited, right, George? I'm
Yeah.
just
Oh
going to
God.
speak
Yeah.
freely. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's way too many. And then the writing's got to fit in. And I think the writing will make at least half of them redundant, you know?
Right. So, I mean, that's what I was wondering about too, because like if, like if I have some story in my head, whether it's true or not about a place, before I take, before I get to the location, like I can't help but try to document that story
Yeah.
or capture the remnants of that story.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It kind of like,
And
it influences you, right? And you're sort of like, you're already, it's already skewed your intentions, what you're looking for. Instead of going to a place like, oh, I'll just receive what's there. You're kind of going, oh, a murder happened here. So, ooh, or, yeah. And then
right,
you
and
deal with
and
this
I
stuff. You deal with these places where so much is,
yeah.
God, it's like overwhelming and hilarious. You're just like picking through, well, which bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that process is such a like parallels the way that we look at pictures, and the way that we put meaning to them, which I think
Yeah.
um it is like it's a burden almost to know the stories
Yes. Yeah.
behind
It'd be better not.
locations.
Yeah. It'd be better not to know them. Yeah. And I think that's where the writing might help. I think some of the writing is going to be from the existing books. Some of it might be about what we did when we were there, and some of it might be about the process. And that's all.
Mm.
That's mainly going to come from Hilary. There might be bits and bobs from Ben and I. Um, and so I think that'll be, and we've spoken about this. I mean, she really gets it. You know, the old chestnut. You don't want the writing to illustrate, to explain the pictures. You don't want the pictures
Hmm.
to illustrate the writing. You don't want like a passage about Cardinal Wolsey's red coat and then a picture of something red or a
Hmm.
red coat. I mean that might happen, but uh, it's more like, I guess, like a guide to what you were saying. It's like, we're going to pull out this bit, this layer from these pictures, because hopefully there's a lot of layers of like lasagna meaning in the pictures, and it's like, we're going to go in and do this bit, this, let me guide you to this piece, but hopefully it's not sort of didactic or dictatorial.
So I'm trying to understand the actual the book, like uh, the pictures in relation to the text. Like, is Hillary's writing going to come before all the pictures, or is it interwoven through
I
the
think
pictures?
I think there's going to be an intro, an introduction, and then there'll be parts of writing in between, coming in between. So there'll be bits in between, and I don't know about titles. I don't know about. I think what most people are going to say is, once they've gone, what the bloody hell is this? What most people are going to say is like, where is this? Ben was saying that people are just going to return this book in droves. They're going to go, I think you sent me the wrong book. I was expecting a book on the Tudors, and I've got all these pictures of like car parks and ladders. So
Well, I don't.
yeah, I think there's got to be somewhere that says where they are, because I think that's what people would be interested in.
Mm.
And yeah, I think just kind of like I mean, I'm really excited about it. I don't like working with people. I mean, I've worked with you, and that was great, but I get uncomfortable with collaborations, but I'm really excited to, and also I'm very precious, as you know, because I've brought huge edits to you before, and you've gone, you want to cut this in half. And I said, Dawn, do me a super tight edit. And you've said, just put these 10 in instead of the 60 you sent me. And then the eventual book I'll do is maybe 30 or something. So, I hate reducing stuff down, but I'm quite excited with this because I know there's going to be another big element that's going to come smashing in. And this was just something I thought I've got to make sense of all these pictures and bring it together somehow and send it to the other two. So that's what I've been doing. And with the amount of time on my hands that we've all had, apart from buying this ridiculous house, which I also did during lockdown, I've mainly been like editing. I haven't made any new pictures other than Instagram, and that doesn't worry me, which is interesting. Because I've just been consolidating and bringing stuff together. It seems like it's the time of my life where I'm doing that. And who knew wood paneling was so good for laying out books?
I mean, George, seeing these pictures made me want to make pictures.
Oh, that's kind.
Um,
Makes me feel
yeah,
good.
yeah, I mean, they're like so many of these pictures make me feel like I just missed something, like, an action or someone or some event that was monumental.
That's good.
And yeah, and I'm really excited about the writing, like
Yeah.
how it can play with these pictures.
Yeah.
And I think like for me, like George, hold on. I don't know why he's
It's fine. Is he all right?
Yeah, he's all right. I think he wants to go outside. Um, I mean, me personally, I'm interested in like how the history haunts a place
Yeah.
and how it still is in the very walls and the
Yeah.
very streets, and
Yeah.
how the two are trying to compromise, and how and I feel like these are it's in every picture.
That's great to hear. Because I think that's how I felt, and we've spoken about this before for a long time, that, you've just got to shift your headspace a bit, your consciousness, if you like, and you can feel all this, and it's all there.
Mhm.
And I think most people have experienced, you go into a place that something really major has happened, and you can kind of feel it, and then your rational brain
Yeah.
goes, "Oh, that's silly. It's just cold or whatever." But I think we can all feel those extremes, but I think it's around us all the time. And luckily, my brother and Hilary think the same, think the same way. Like they get it, but they express it in different ways. But luckily, we can see it within each other's what we're doing, and more importantly, like what we're producing is encouraging the other person to think slightly differently about what they're doing, or helping them understand how they're achieving that. That's what was incredible about reading the words that were coming back,
Mm-hmm.
about my work. So yeah, it's that idea of just like tuning into different layers, and how the problems or the things of the past are still relevant today, and they're still seeped around, and there are universal concerns, and loss and love and ambition and that kind of thing, tragedy. and they're all swirling around us all the time. And I think certain objects and places can really hold them. And I think if you can feel that out and make a really, I want to say honest, but yeah, like an honest picture of that experience, then hopefully that'll communicate to others. That'll come through to others. So it's not like you're trying to push another narrative or lay another story onto it. You've just tuned into part of it, and then you've become a conduit or whatever, which is a word my brother and I use, a conduit for what's already there. You're just going like, this is what I think is, like this fireplace, and you're giving it to somebody else.
Really sweet, George.
That's the plan.
When you make pictures like this and you know the story behind the place,
Yeah.
or some version of the story, do you feel at all a responsibility of some sort to deliver that feeling? Or I think it's beyond a feeling, though. It's
yeah.
more like that historical narrative. Do you feel a
Yeah.
responsibility in
Oh,
that?
I think I was fortunate because I didn't know much about history when I read the books. Like in school, we had quite a liberal school, and that I went to, and we didn't do traditional British history like the kings and queens of England. So I knew Henry VIII had 6 wives, and you think, was it 8? Oh no, he's Henry VIII. He had 6 wives. I knew he had 6 wives. I vaguely knew that he had this right-hand man called Thomas Cromwell, who turned out to be pretty important. But I didn't know any of that, so I didn't. When I read the books, I kind of didn't know what the outcome was going to be. I knew like the wives weren't going to be around for very long, but I didn't know the other players, and so I didn't know the important. I knew certain of the places we went, but I knew them for other reasons. So it was like I was going in without too many preconceptions, or responsibilities, as you say. So there's just so many to sort of say, oh, I need to tell I'm responsible for telling the narrative, telling the story. There are so many conflicting, overlaying ones. It's quite useful, that, because you just kind of go, well, I need to know vaguely what I'm there for, but basically this is my response. This is like, in a way, like the story I'm telling is what I can tune into now, and that might be like in a fire extinguisher sat next to something else, that and there's kind of a vague idea about something to do with a fire that had happened, but that might have been 2 years ago on this site, or it might have been like in the 16th century, or so there's not too much responsibility. We would often go, Ben and I would go to these places and just go, what are we doing here again? We feel like we were like interlopers, like totally making it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as we got there and started it made sense. And afterwards we'd be like, yeah, I think we're onto something. But every time we went, it seemed like we didn't have faith in what we were doing, or we couldn't quite believe it. But then once you're there, it was like we almost like established a pattern of like, oh yeah, this is it. I know what we're doing. And it was uncanny, because there were quite a few there were some sort of like certain gifts, and you just go, "Are you kidding me? This is made to be a photograph." You know, it's
Mhm.
almost like someone had set them out to you. So that's always a good sign. You're just like, come
And
on.
when you were editing, George, wait, did Ben edit at all? Help you edit the
Uh,
sequence that I'm looking at now?
uh, not he. We edited this first version of the first pictures we
Hmm.
took, and that forms a lot of the structure of the first bit of each chapter, if you like. Um, and then I've shown him this, and he's suggested some things which I kind of agreed with as well. Like, I don't think we need that, and I was saying I don't think we need. There's sort of some things we want to swap around, and um, so I've shown it to him, somebody else whose opinion I respect quite a lot, and Hilary, and they all sort of like, they all kind of like, the things they've said just like things that I've been thinking anyway. Or like, I think there's too many pictures of the river, but Hilary thinks it's fine. I might put there's the section we're going up and down the river, and I might, instead of that being a section, that might run through it and connect them all, things like that. So he's edited a bit of it, and that's, I think you've got the second version where we've taken a couple out and I've swapped a couple over. But we're gonna do more as soon as the writing comes in, and the writing's getting started now, and is ready to go. Then, like I say, it'll be like a massacre. It'd be great. But I was expecting him to go, "No, we don't need that, don't need that." And people who've looked at it have gone, "Yeah, yeah, there's a lot, but yeah, maybe not that one." And it's one of those things where I was thinking, this is way too much. Thinking, well, it is too much, but that kind of is all right for now.
George, one of my favorite spreads are the three boys smoking
Oh
out
yeah,
on the street.
yeah, that's Ben's picture. It's a great one.
And then followed by the next spread with the image on the right, the same angle, but with a man appearing, right? And then on the left, large knives, large knives, large knives,
Yeah,
mustard pots. Like that large knives, mustard pots, for me, like, is such a good, it's like,
it's,
it ties up like what I think of England is.
totally. Yeah, totally, totally. In both the 17th century and today. Yeah, yeah. I know, like that.
Today.
That's at Austin Friars, which was Cromwell's house. That was in the basement at Austin Friars, or what it is
Oh
now.
my God.
And to
That's
think,
amazing.
okay, we've got this set of drawers, and three of them are full of large knives, and then the bottom one's mustard pot. And Ben took that other photo, and he was thinking of like the clerks, like the Italian clerks that would have hung out there and smoked, or the boys that he had in his household who would help and do stuff. And
Mm.
that's all outside Austin Friars, which is the sort of Cromwell house. Um, yeah, that it's those kind of things, those kind of gifts that come along. They're great. You know, like you're onto something, as I said before.
I'm excited about the book, George.
Me too. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. Like, don't know any of the parameters yet. You know, when you get into like somebody comes along and says, "Oh, we've only got this many pages or this size," so all those things about size and how many pages we could do and that sort of stuff are going to be are going to come in
Sure.
and lay out,
And,
you know.
and how many more times will we go back and forth with Hilary?
It's quite nice and open. So there's you know, it's hopefully going to come out next year, but there's no crazy deadline on it. I don't think. I mean, there is, but I think we can adjust it as much as possible. But I've got a sort of, I don't know, I've got a sort of faith that there's going to be some writing, and then that's going to really sort of, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to fall away, and then it's going to become evident, and then there might be a bit more, and then it'll be a case of tidying up. That's how I sort of feel it's going to go, you know. So far it's been like that, so it's exciting, and I'm glad to have had some time to do this.
I'm excited for you, George.
Great.
What are some title options?
Title?
Options, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you've got some.
No, what are they? Do you have any?
Yeah, I think, well, we originally called it Scrying TC, you know, or Scrying Thomas Cromwell. So, you know, the term scrying,
Mm-mm.
it's like you look into a shiny object to foretell the past or the future. And that might be a crystal ball or a piece of glass or a bit of polished obsidian.
Wow.
And it was and that to me, that's kind of like, right, you know, that's what you're doing with the lens of a camera, right? That's kind of what we're doing. We're scrying with this shiny object to look through into the future and the past, and blah blah blah. So that was like a working title, and then it was called the Red Book for ages, because the version I did, Hilary, had a big red title, and she liked the Red Book because that relates to a book that was a medieval book, the Red Book of, I can't remember where that is, Hergest or something like that. And then I think we've settled on just calling it the Wolf Hall Picture Book, because that is what it is.
That's a good title.
It is a good title. Yeah. I mean, when Hilary comes up with that, it's like, yeah, that is a good title. So yeah, no pretensions. So yeah, I think it's that. Makes sense.
Is there anything else you want to add to this?
No, I think that's it. It's been great talking with you about it.
Did you ever feel like you needed to include, like, half of the pictures needed to be Ben and half of them needed to be yours? Did you start like tallying?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I thought about that for a bit, and then I just thought, nah.
That's good.
Funny, there's some page spreads where it's like me and Ben and me, double me, double me, double me again. Ben. Then there's some that are double Ben. So I really wanted to get a picture. I really wanted to get Hilary to take a picture, but I never quite made it. She's in a couple in the reflections of things, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you look at a good picture long enough, it can feel like you've made it. So
So yeah, no, that wasn't really on my mind.
no, that's great.
Yeah.